Welcome to the October 20th meeting of the Town of Concord Historical Commission. We are conducting this meeting online in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order, suspending certain suspensions of the open meeting law. The public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. So first we will, we're called to order and roll call. Doug Ellis present. Melissa?
You're
I'm
muted.
present. I'm sorry, I'm present.
Lauren?
Oh,
Lauren Meyer here.
Nancy?
Nancy Frisella Lee here.
Okay. All right, welcome all. So we've got really one topic for tonight. It's your meeting. So do we want to just do it in the order for the demolition reviews for the individual properties? Does that make sense? Yeah, Lauren.
I mean, I'm not sure how the proponents want to do this, but the PowerPoint is for all of the properties. I mean,
Yeah.
what we could do is, I mean, you could segment it, or you could just have them do the whole, have them go through the whole PowerPoint, and then we start with the first one and debate it. So, but the PowerPoint is for the whole scope.
I Sure. agree.
I like that idea.
Okay, that's fine. All right, you folks want to do that?
Yep.
All right. Who wants to take point on that?
Is that calling on us, Doug?
Yeah.
All right, we're ready.
I'm not sure who would be on point.
Yep. No, we're ready, and our friends at Epsilon will share the presentation. I'm Chris Sintros, CEO of New England Deaconess. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you all tonight. I'm proud of the organization that I serve, that has been one of the longest continually serving healthcare organizations in Massachusetts and in New England. We've been here in Concord since 1911 and have served 5 generations of Concordians. Erin, will you put the slideshow up, or do you want me to do that?
Yes, I was just waiting to have access. It looks like I can now share, so I'll have it up momentarily.
Good. Well, I suspect that most folks know we purchased 12 acres of land across the street from us, from our friends and partners at Emerson Hospital. We have had the same footprint on our current site for 115 years. You can go to the next slide, Erin. We're very pleased with the response we got at town meeting, achieving an 87% yes vote to our rezoning proposal. So thank you all for that. And we really, if you can advance the slide, Erin, just want to continue to expand to meet the demand. Not only are we out of space, but we maintain full occupancy. We do have needs to expand this campus. We have a wait list of over 600 people. Many of you may be aware that the demographic growth of this age group is striking. 33% more households will be over 75 years old over the next 10 years. If we can go to the next slide, please, Erin. I hope you folks are aware, we worked very hard with the select board to create a memorandum of agreement so that our expansion and our development will benefit the whole community. We have committed to mitigation payments that will support affordability for both homes and services. We've committed to betterments such as sidewalks and improving walkability access to West Concord. We will continue to pay taxes in the town, and we'll expand our tax base, our tax footprint here in the town with a new expansion campus. So we are really hopeful that this is a proposal that benefits the whole community. We have a number of more steps. We have many more steps in this process. We did administer 23,000 surveys recently, which was led by Greystone, a national market research firm. We will be holding focus groups on site here at Newbury Court before the end of the month, which is coming quickly. And once we've finished that, we'll finalize a project concept, and we look forward to bringing that to the planning board for a site plan review. So, we are at the beginning of this journey, but we do want to continue moving forward assertively. With that said, I'm pleased to introduce our partners at Emerson, Erin Doherty will be, I think, leading our presentation, and Doug Kelleher to walk us through the historic slides. So, Erin, do you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you, Chris, and good evening, Commissioners. Erin Doherty with Epsilon. I'm joined by Doug Kelleher, Principal at Epsilon. We were engaged by Deaconess to assist in preparing the demolition review applications. So our presentation will review our findings of the historical research of the properties that are before us this evening, as well as architectural analysis of the existing conditions of each property. So we'll go through all of them, and then of course glad to answer any questions you may have. The proponent would request that the demolition delay not be imposed for this project, and they are willing to undertake some additional mitigation in the form of historic documentation of the buildings prior to demolition, if you determine that to be an appropriate step, but we can address that in more detail in the slides. So to begin, 25 Old Marlborough Road. This is at the northeast corner of the overall project site. It's at the corner of Old Marlborough Road and Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. In this aerial view at the left, you can see Route 2 extending from the northwest toward the southeast. To the southeast is also Emerson Hospital, and to the west is the Concord Country Club. The history of 25 Old Marlborough Road, it was constructed around 1790 for farmer and cabinet maker John Hosmer. Hosmer name is of course well known in the history of Concord. This particular Hosmer was of the 5th generation, and the house remained in the Hosmer family until 1912, after which there were numerous additions and alterations to the property that we'll take a closer look at. But the original portion of the building is what you see partially on the right. This 1.5-story gambrel roof block and L. There are those numerous additions and alterations that have modified its original form and materials. There were also historic outbuildings on the site, which are not extant. This is formerly a very large farmstead, which was reduced in size over time, and those historic outbuildings have been lost. The building is included in the Massachusetts Historical Commission's statewide inventory, but the property is not listed in the state or national register, and it has not been determined eligible for listing by the MHC. A closer look at some of the existing conditions and changes over time that we were able to document. On the left side is that view of the north elevation. A couple things to note: there is modern asphalt shingle roofing. Windows throughout the building are replacements, some of which are vinyl replacements. And at the front entrance, there is a non-historic entry porch, which was likely added in the early 20th century after the building was sold out of the Hosmer family. On the right, moving around to the west elevation, you start to see one of the additions to the property. There were 2 single-story additions put at the east and west elevations, so that's what you see circled in red. Like the entry porch, this likely dates to the early 20th century. We did find an aerial photograph of the property from 1938 that showed it was in place by then. Moving around to the back side of the property, on the left you see the west elevation again with the 1-story addition, and then also there is a late 20th century addition on the back of the L. You can also see some modern vinyl windows, and there's a replacement non-original entry door and stoop at the entrance here. On the right, just another view of moving around to the back side of the property. Again, seeing that late 20th century addition And there's also another modern rear entrance and stoop that you can see a little bit better in the next image. On the left, there's that additional modern rear entry stoop. There's also a full width, non-historic dormer on the back side of the roof. And there's an additional side addition, which you can see also in the image on the right, one-story addition that was likely added in the early 20th century. And also there is an additional chimney on this end wall that you can sort of see through the trees on the right. We suspected that was also added in the early 20th century. In looking at the relationship to the demolition delay bylaw, the property was constructed in the 18th century for a member of the John Hosmer family. There's this is one among many surviving properties associated with this family. The property, while it's included in the inventory, it has not been evaluated for National Register eligibility, does not appear to be significantly associated with historic persons or events that sort of influence the history of the town. And due to many modifications over time, it does not appear to be among the best examples of its type or style locally. It's also not significant as part of an ensemble of buildings or structures. And as you'll see as we go through some of the other properties, does not have a sort of direct relationship historically to these other buildings in the surrounding area. And then it's also not located within 150 feet of the boundary line of any designated historic districts. Reasons for demolition, as Chris mentioned, this is for an expansion of the Newbury Court campus. The existing building itself has limited potential for reuse as part of that new program. The changes that would have to be made to this property would be very significant. But as we mentioned, and Chris can discuss further, there is a willingness to complete documentation of the history and architecture of the building, as well as archival photography, or incorporating a historical exhibit on the history of the John Hosmer farm into one of the new buildings on the site, or naming of buildings or roadways in the Hosmer name. Next is 174 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. So this parcel is located at the southwest corner of the project site, abutting the Concord Country Club. There are two buildings on this parcel, a main house and an outbuilding that we believe was a camp. And these buildings are located at the far west end of the parcel, up against the property line with the country club, and they're not visible from the street itself. History of the property, as I said, there are two buildings on the site that were constructed around 1942 for the Mackenzie family. As you may have noted in our filing for the property, the land was owned by Dazette and William Mackenzie of Cambridge. These two individuals were prominent within the Christian Science Church. However, they never lived at this property. They owned the property earlier, but the earliest residents here were their son and his wife, G. Stewart and Nancy Mackenzie. The property was then owned privately up until it was sold to Emerson Hospital in the late 90s. So as I mentioned, the property includes two buildings, the Tudor Revival style main house in the image at the upper right, and a secondary outbuilding, which was described in tax records as a camp. These buildings are not included in the MHC's inventory of historic places, and they're also not listed in the state or national registers, nor have they been determined eligible for listing. A view of the existing conditions. This is the main house. The front of the building which is the east elevation, is brick. So you see that on the image on the left. Around the backside of the property, which you can see on the right, it has a sort of live edge wood siding. This is further moving around the back of the property. There is an attached garage, which in the image on the left, you see at the left, connected by an open breezeway. And that's just another view on the right of the main house at the left and the garage on the right. This is the secondary outbuilding on the property, which is located at the far northwest corner of the parcel. This is the front elevation, which you can see on the left, and a detail of the main entrance. It's a wood frame building. Moving around the back, additional views. And on the right is the back of the building with the secondary entrance. And this is really very close to the property line of the country club. In reviewing the property's relationship to the demo delay bylaw and its historic and architectural significance, we found that while this land was owned by these prominent Scientologists, there were not significant associations with them or with activities of the Christian Science Church occurring on the property. Was occupied by their son, who worked in manufacturing. The property is not visible from the public way, not included in the MHC inventory, and has not been evaluated for National Register eligibility. The property does not appear to be significantly associated with historic persons or events influential to the town or beyond that. Does not appear to be among the best examples of its type or style locally. Notably, we were not able to locate a original building permit for the property, and the original architect is not known. Like 25 Old Marlborough Road, there does not appear to be a significant ensemble of buildings that are associated here, and it's not within 150 feet of the boundary line of the designated district. Like 25 Old Marlborough Road, this building was constructed as single-family residential buildings and has limited potential for alternative uses. And it would not be possible to accommodate the proposed program within the existing building. For this property, the owner is willing to complete documentation on the history and architecture of the building, or undertake archival photography for the record. 166 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. This is one parcel north along Old Road to 9 Acre Corner from where we were. This building was constructed around 1946 to 48 for Arthur and Helen Beardstell of West Concord. Arthur owned a dry cleaning business locally. It's a single-family residence in the modernist style. The original plans filed for this building attribute its design to Ernst Bankert of Winnetka, Illinois, and it has a specific name, Modern House Design number 46A. However, when we compared the original plans to what was constructed, which I'll share a little bit more in detail, we saw significant differences between the building plans and what exists today in terms of its massing, its material, also the design and placement of doors and windows, and the individual who was responsible for these changes is not known. This is a property that is not included in the MHC inventory and also not listed in the state or national Register of Historic Places, and it has not been determined eligible. So to take a closer look at what exists today, on the left is the historic drawing of the east elevation, and on the right, comparative photograph of what exists today. So to start, the exterior materials are different from what was originally drawn. The original plans show a metal siding, but the building itself has a concrete block exterior. There are differences in the placement and sizing of windows across the front elevation. And also, we see a significant difference in the overall massing of the building at the what is the right-hand side of the building. There was originally designed, sort of an offset shed roof wing that was exchanged for simply extending the gable roof of that right section of the building. So omitting that offset shed roof wing. Moving around to the north elevation, you can see additional changes. We see again, the siding difference, exterior material. There was originally a flat roof entry canopy proposed for the main entrance, which actually, to go back, you can see here as well. And instead of having that flat roof canopy, the entrance is sheltered by an extension of the gable roof itself. And here again, we see that the offset wing was not constructed. We see an extension of the gable roof block, and then there's an intersecting block at the back of the property across gable wing. Again, we see differences in the window placement on this elevation as well. This is the rear west elevation. Again, we see the difference in that rear projecting wing. Here you can see very clearly it's a gable roof block coming off the back of the building rather than this shed roof wing that was originally designed. The materials are different. The window design is different. And also this sort of original sunroom that was designed for the back of the property looks very different today and was likely built differently when the building was constructed. And finally, at the south elevation, similar to the other elevations, we see differences in the design and placement of windows, as well as the exterior siding materials. In terms of its relationship to the demo delay bylaw, this property was constructed in between 1946 and 48, as we discussed, not included in the inventory, has not been determined eligible for National Register listing, and doesn't appear eligible for listing. Does not appear to be significantly associated with influential persons or events at the local, state, or federal level. It does not appear to be among the best examples of its type or style, or the work of a notable architect, given there are significant differences from the original building plans and what exists as far as materials, massing, and details. Similar to the other properties, not within a significant ensemble of buildings or located in close proximity to any designated historic districts. Like the prior two properties, this building would be very challenging to reuse for the proposed program without making really significant changes to its integrity. But prior to demolition, the owner is willing to complete a similar level of documentation on its history and architecture, as well as archival photography. Finally, 148 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner, so one lot further north. This is a single family ranch style residence designed in the post-war traditional style. It was constructed in 1953 for Earl Crockett of Concord, and did share some interesting information she found about Crockett. Crockett's son was James Underwood Crockett, who was the original host of PBS's The Victory Garden show. But he lived in a different house in Concord. This was his parents' house. This is not the house that he grew up in. So there's some association with the family, but this was not his residence. The plans filed with this permit for this building do note Crockett as owner, architect, and builder. Crockett has no other works in the MHC's inventory, recorded in inventory. And this appears to be sort of a typical example of mid-century, single-family residential construction. The property itself is not included in the inventory, and it's not listed in the state or national registers. And its eligibility has not been established. Looking at the existing conditions, on the left, you see the east elevation, which faces the road, and the north elevation. This has a fully attached garage, which you see on the right. Image on the right, moving around toward the east side of the building. Sorry, toward the south side of the building. Image on the left, again, moving around toward the south elevation. See the building's overall massing, materials, windows. And then on the right, you can see the west elevation, which is the back side of the property. Here, another view on the left of the west rear elevation, and on the right, a detail of the garage. In terms of its historic and architectural significance, as I mentioned, this was built by Earl Crockett, who worked as a building contractor. It's not included in the MHC inventory and has not been evaluated for NR eligibility. Does not appear to be eligible for listing based on its architectural and historic significance. It appears to lack the significant associations with historic persons or events or within the overall history of the town. Does not appear to be among the best examples of its type or style locally. It's not the work of a notable architect, sort of a common survivor of mid-century development. And like the other buildings on this project site, there doesn't appear to be a significant ensemble of buildings that's historic in its own right that this building would be a part of. And like the others, it's not within close proximity of any designated historic districts. Like the others, it was originally constructed as a single-family building with limited potential for use in the proposed project. But prior to demolition, the owner is willing to complete documentation on the history and architecture of the building, as well as archival photography. I believe here I pass it back to Chris to close us out, and then we're very happy to take your questions. So thank you.
Well, as you can see here, we got a beautiful picture of you know the view from the top of the hill of the land. This is a drone photography, and you know it's a new horizon for the organization, and we just look forward to working with you to keep this project moving forward. The only final comment I'll share is we're really pleased to have a Facebook post from a family member of Newbury Court who happened to grow up in 25 Old Marlborough Road, and she spoke in her Facebook post about having multiple generations of her family here on the Newbury Court campus, and wholeheartedly supports the project moving forward. So we're grateful for her support, and we're happy to field questions.
All right, are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend you for a very thorough presentation. We don't always get as much detail as you have provided. So kudos to you for that. I would be interested if there are any neighborhood residents who are participating in this hearing who would like to speak.
I see Matt.
Thank you. This is Matt Rupley. I'm the president of Concord Country Club at 246 Ornack. On behalf of the club, the direct abutter to the properties under discussion tonight, our board fully supports our 100-year neighbor Deaconess in the request to remove these 4 vacant houses. These houses have been allowed to decay beyond repair over the years, and detract from the character of the surrounding area. A natural woodland would be much more appealing to our club, and the best outcome is if they are removed as soon as possible. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
Any other butters who like to make any comments?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Mark Stackness. I live across from 25. And I wasn't going to say anything, but I just heard the country club say sooner the better. Yeah, when can we get rid of these eyesores?
I have a question just to ask Chris, I guess. Have there been incidences of vandalism in these buildings? Because I know they have been vacant for some time, which would be a public concern.
Yeah, so there was one since we've owned it. There was one that was broken into since we've owned it. But prior to, they've all just been filled with bottles and miscellaneous debris. So yeah, from our perspective, they're more hazard than they are value.
Okay. Are there any
And
other comments?
let me add, since I live across from them, when the pandemic started, teenagers were going into these places, and so the hospital, previous owner, boarded up access to them so they couldn't get in. But yeah, they were in use during the early years.
Makes sense. Any other comments?
Doug, I mean, the only other comment I would make, I appreciate the fact that they're willing to do a complete documentation in the history and archival photography, because that is actually what we would require. You've got a good start on it already, but and then this goes on deposited at the town, special collections.
So I took a walk around all of these houses, and I have to say I feel a little sad about the Hosmer house. The Hosmers, as you've identified, are I live across the street from two Hosmer houses, so they're an old Concord family with a long history, and as I live more in the center of town, and this house is more on the outskirts in what was the farming, community, well, one of the farming community neighborhoods. And so losing that house, we lose that, we don't lose that history, but we lose the presence of the history. And there's nothing else like that in that neighborhood. So, and the historical commission, we try to be balanced. I know the house, I looked at it, it's in very poor condition. There are a lot of additions to it. But the two gambrel roof built parts are really quite charming. And you think if they had been taken care of and saved, people like bigger houses. Now it would be more like a really tiny house, and it's a beautiful property. It has a lot of land, so it's sad that it wasn't taken care of. And I am a bit sad that with some imagination, and maybe I'm just idealistic, that it could be even moved and maybe I don't know, used as a welcoming. I don't know what you're planning for your structures, so I'm a little bit sad that, I understand the concerns and what your needs are, but it's still sad. I'll leave it at that.
One other comment, you mentioned somehow maybe in the entryway to this, whatever new structure you're creating, will be creating some information about what you are replacing, the history. So this would be an opportunity to say, particularly, I'm interested about the Hosmer family, of course, the Long Concord family, the Crockett Association, and I would be interested. We were talking before we started this that there is a Christian Science church here in town, and none of us knows the genesis of that. And I would be interested to know if, in fact, these folks were people who helped to found it, or so that would just be an historical, some research to find that out.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Lauren?
I wonder, I have first a kind of logistical question, and that is, and this is maybe a question for Anne. In order to put requirements on a decision, so for example, the documentation requirement, rather than have it be voluntary, do we need to determine the property preferably preserved? And second question is, can we determine something preferably preserved but waive the delay period? So that's a procedural question. And then third, I think it'd be good to take these properties kind of one at a time and talk about their, even if it's a short conversation. We've heard kind of general discussions about how the neighbors are concerned about the condition, what the objectives of the proponent are, but I think then it's our job to kind of take the merits of each project and just kind of check that box as we go through. So that's three points.
Okay. So let's go through them one at a time for comments. So let's start. I mean, we already talked about 25 Old Marlborough Road. And I think that's probably.
Well, wait, not so fast.
Okay.
Because I want Lauren to go speak for herself, but I'm wondering if this is the one property that we might consider preferably preserved and then waive it, as long as the documentation meets what we request, which would be complete documentation, the history of the site, the history of that house, the history of that Hosmer family, to the extent it's this John Hosmer family. Typically, that's what we ask for any building that we allow to be demolished anyway. That is a requirement. But I'm not sure if what it matters to say that it's preferably preserved. I don't know, Lauren, I'm not sure it makes a difference, but.
Well, I just want to make sure that, particularly for this first one.
Yeah.
And I fully agree with Nancy Priscilla-Lee on this. I think that this is an important house for Concord, and even if just the kind of original section could be the rest could be demolished, but the original section could be saved and, in an ideal world, incorporated into the new design in some way. Think about the cottages at McLean Hospital that were, integral to that setting, which was basically continuing care facility, because that's where folks went, in the 19th century when they couldn't age in place anymore. So, I know it was people think of it in other ways, but that's what it was. It was a continuing care facility. And so that's just my thought. I think the 25, the first one is the most significant of the group. And I agree with Nancy.
Yeah, I guess for the record, I want to add something. And one of in your analysis, you had as one of the points that no one in the house was historically significant. And I understand what you mean by that. John Hosmer was a farmer and a carpenter, but our job in the commission is not, we do look at that, of course, but in the 18th century, the Hosmer family as a whole, they were an important Concord family, and they, as an aggregate, it all adds up to an important history of Concord. This is an 18th century house. It's not, yeah. So, yeah, it's just probably not a lot of people would agree. They see a house that looks abandoned and falling down. I understand that people look at that, but right now our commission, and this is just for the record, we're putting together a preservation plan and talking about, why save old buildings, why save the rural characteristics of Concord, why do we bother saving the farming landscapes that was what Concord was. And we want to be respectful to, development, and we have needs, and we all have needs. We're all aging, and we're going to need that. So I think it's just our responsibility. If we don't look at this, who else is going to look at this? So, that's why it's important. I mean, I think it's a charming little house. I have kids who grew up in Concord and they won't settle there, but it would be such a nice little house for a small family. And I know that, you bought the land and it's a great place. It's right across the street from Newbury Court, where the new setting, but, in the best of all possible worlds, it'd be really great if that oldest structure were saved and you could use it for something else, even if you had to move it to a different part of the property and let a staff some live there, or use it as a welcoming center. I know that's difficult. Your design is not even, developed yet. So this is speculation, but I think that's our responsibility to speak about these things.
Anne?
Thank you.
Right. So I also wanted to thank Aaron and the applicants for doing such a thorough job on the research. That's really very helpful. But also just note that the commission as a whole respectfully disagrees with a lot of the conclusions. The commission has already found that these four structures are historically significant. So those slides that say that they're not really don't apply. This is really a conversation about whether or not the structures are preferably preserved. And just to note for the 25 Old Marlborough Road, there is a MACRS form on that property, and the consultant at the time did find it to be national or potentially eligible for the National Register. The commission just hasn't pursued it any farther. So that's just a point of clarification. And also, I guess that this that structure is associated with one of the largest farms in Concord. And then Lauren had some procedural questions. This commission has written letters saying that finding that it's not preferably preserved, but that the commission does require the documentation. In Waltham, where I worked before, they would find it preferably preserved, and then once the documentation came in is when they would waive that finding. So people in Concord are so polite and they follow through with the recommendation, but in Waltham, they actually required it. And by having that preferably preserved status, that sort of forced people to follow through. Yeah, I know you all have a great relationship with each other, but that's just, the point. And then let's see. Yes, and so, right, that also addresses your second question, Lauren, about whether if it's found preferably preserved, whether y'all could waive that finding. And you certainly could.
Waive the delay.
Waive the delay. Sorry, waive the delay. Find it perfectly preserved, but waive the delay.
But
Can I just continue on that since I raised the question, and part of what I'm wondering, and I'm sort of new. I'm not so new anymore, but part of the question is what happens if the conditions are not met? So we let these structures go. We really want the documentation, and the documentation doesn't happen. If we don't have some kind of process in place, then there's no way to guarantee that that will happen. So that's just the kind of the thinking behind the why for me.
I didn't think you could issue a demo permit unless you had, they have to go through Anne, who has to know that in fact the documentation has been presented. I didn't think, I mean, this has happened before, and they're not supposed to get a permit unless they've got, Anne blesses it and says the documentation is adequate.
Is that
I
so?
mean, I mean, that's,
Right.
you know, recently, so, you know, the Emerson, the White House, I mean, the White
Yeah.
House, they could not get their permit. And this was a big issue at the hospital until we heard from Anne that in fact, she had received the documentation that was required.
Great. Is that right?
Yes.
Great. So that sounds like there's a checks and balances in place. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Great. That was the answer to my question. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Jonathan Silverstein. I'm the Applicant's Counsel. Appreciate the Commission's time tonight. I just wanted to follow up on a couple issues that have been raised really quickly from a process standpoint. The first is as to the designation of the historical significance of these buildings. Under the bylaw, one member of the Commission can make that determination to push us to a hearing, but it does take a majority vote of the full Commission to confirm that it's a historically significant building and that its demolition would be detrimental to the architectural or historical heritage of the town. That's under section 3.4 of the bylaw. So just, you know, one little clarification there. To my knowledge, the full Commission has not taken such a vote of historical significance. I think more importantly, and going to the process question that was raised, section 3.51B of the bylaw specifically allows the Commission, after a finding of preferably preserved, to waive the demolition delay if, quote, the applicant has agreed to accept a demolition permit on conditions specified by the CHC.
Right.
I think that's what we're talking about. That's, but just for clarification, that would be a condition of approval that unless the board requires it, and the Commission rather requires it, and I would ask that the Commission not require that it be satisfied prior to issuance of the demolition permit. It's still an enforceable condition. So if, and I don't think anyone really thinks that Deaconess would not comply with a condition of approval, but if the applicant did not comply with the condition, that would be subject to enforcement action under the bylaw. I think no one thinks that we would do that, but I don't know how long this type of work and research would take. And everyone has an interest, I think, in seeing this process move forward, hopefully without having to await the completion of that project before demolition permit can issue.
Can I just say something? You know, well,
It's
very hard for us.
Watching the clock, I do have a 7 o'clock meeting, so I may have to pass the baton at 7
Okay.
o'clock. But that being said, go ahead, Melissa.
Well, you know, you talk about enforcement. We don't have, you know, that's one of the challenges we have. We do not have a police office, you know, behind us. The enforcement that we have is to require that you provide this documentation. And I don't think it would be that lengthy. You've done a lot of work already. And also we haven't, to you, Doug, we haven't taken a vote on each one of these.
Nope.
You know, depending on what our vote determines, I think my sense, I mean, for me personally, I'm most interested in 25, but I think there's history associated with a couple of the others as well that could be fleshed out.
So we're at a point where we can go through and talk about each property and put together a motion. Lauren,
Yeah.
I look to your experience. You always say you're the new person, but I beg to differ. I am the new person, so I'll defer to your sage wisdom on how to structure a motion on this.
I think, well, I guess we've talked a bit about the first one, and
25.
do you think we're ready? I mean, I think,
I think we've had the presentation, we've had
Yeah.
discussion. I think we're ready for a motion,
it,
unless anyone objects, and I don't see any objections.
the only thing I would be willing to make a motion. I will tell you, frankly, that's the one property where I'm wary about waiving the delay. And the reason I am wary about it, now, let me just say for the record that I fully respect the objectives of what Newburyport wants to do. And, we fully support that. And we know that town meeting voted on the zoning. And we know this is a project that has a demonstrable public benefit.
Thank you.
So, and that is sometimes a justification for waiving the delay on a historically significant property. But this one, I'm feeling, sad about it, to be honest. And I mean, that's not a scientific statement, but, the Hosmer family is important to the history of Concord. And this is a house that portions of it were built in 1790. No question it's been altered, but welcome to New England.
Right.
Right? I mean, it's an old house that's been added on to over time. And so I think the real question here is, I think there's no question it should be designated preferably preserved. I think that is, but the question is waiving the delay or not. And I personally am not able to make that motion unless I hear really from other commission members.
I personally would agree with you, Lauren. I mean, it always hurts me to see any of these treasures lost, but in reality, I think it's already been lost. The condition is not in a great state. It's not, the neighbors haven't chimed in that it's, I mean, it's something that's a shame, but it is what it is. And we do have the pressing need to kind of move to the next chapter. And I know I'm probably
I guess I'm
hurting
gonna
my
push
fellow
back.
commissioners, but that's my opinion.
I guess I'm going to push back. I wasn't bold enough to do this, but I don't know if this is appropriate. I always wonder when applicants come, like Lauren, we understand your objectives and I voted for it at town meeting myself. But it is your project and it's a lot of money. And you say that you've been in Concord for so long, and you care about Concord. I just wonder how much, if you've put in any thought about, given time to thinking about what you could do creatively with that structure. We can't tell you because it's your project. But you're coming to us asking us to tear it down. And I just wonder, in a way, what you think about it. I mean, you don't have to answer that, but
Sure. I'm happy.
wonder about it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to, and the professionals at Epsilon can steer me if they need to. But I'll share two things off the cuff. I mean, I think it's clear and also fair, that we each have different missions, right? Yours is historic buildings, and ours is to preserve, people in town and the living history, and so we do have different missions, and I think accepting that is okay. When you say what creative thoughts we've had, what I I had great hopes for that house personally. Before we purchased it, you could have imagined so many things, and we had professionals that we hired to walk through that just said, get us out of this building. It's just we don't want our staff even in this building. But the one thing we did find was this boiler, which I assume was a coal boiler in the basement, which I thought was the coolest old kind of cast iron um, boiler. And when you say what creative things we have, I mean, have we thought about, I would personally love to preserve that cast iron boiler. And I'd love to preserve the name, whether it's naming a building or naming a street. I don't know how else you save any of the center part of the house. I really don't. But when you ask, what have you thought about creatively? Those are the two things that I would point to, and I'd ask our professionals to steer me elsewhere if you think that's appropriate. But the boiler itself is really, really cool, and it's got this little, you know, it's almost a throwback green initiative because it's engraved, save energy by cleaning this boiler. It's a really cool piece, I think.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Melissa, would you mind taking over as chair?
Oh, great. Thank you. Yes.
I'll be
Okay.
back. I'll be back.
Um,
Thank you. I appreciate your entertaining my question.
Sure.
Nancy?
I'm profusely sorry for being late, but I kept up with what's going on fairly well. I wonder, has documentation of the house and photographic evidence of it in and outside been discussed tonight? I'm really sorry for being
Yeah.
late. So that has been discussed as something that's almost essential.
Yeah, I mean, that part of that I think is what we're considering for all of them.
Yeah,
Yes, they would
okay,
have to do
okay,
that.
okay. Thank you. Sorry.
I mean, there are very few old homes left in West Concord. I think that's the thing that really troubles me. We lost so much of the Damon Mill area. We lost a house right across from Concord Green. There was a delay on it, but the wrecking ball took that one down. I too would wonder if there's any creative way to save the centerpiece, the historic piece. I mean, actually, as Lauren points out, just about any old home has been added onto and shaped. So there's very few original homes at all left. But that being the oldest part, which I think most of us are very concerned about, if it could be the facade be somehow saved, preserved, and incorporated into the design, in addition to some history statement, and as you've offered, use the names of some of these structures as perhaps some of the names of the new, whatever it is you're just going to be designing for this expansion of Deaconess. It's just, I don't know if you've got your architects here, but
No, I mean Ray's our project manager, owner's project manager, and Ray can weigh in for us. Ray Mitrano.
Good evening. Well, I think any of these homes, kind of where they're located, would be pretty restrictive or become another restriction. I mean, we've already given up a lot of easements and setbacks, and the land is very sloped in the topography here. So there's very limited good land to build buildings on that are flat and able to walk. So just to add another restriction at this point would be very difficult to do. Many of these homes will not survive moving. I mean, we have to move it with the topography that's out there. We would need to clear a very open path to move anything. And then to work around something when we haven't even started the design process, I think it'd be pretty restrictive on the overall design going forward without knowing exactly where we're going. We kind of have an idea, but just adding one more level would be difficult.
Nance?
How long, when was the design process actually finalized, and did you ever think about the historic structures? And I'm just wondering how, I mean, is this sort of the first time
Well, I'll take part of that, Ray, and you can jump in. But I think so. Our design process is not finalized. In answer to your question, did we think about trying to save the buildings? We have. Right off the bat, we thought we had uses for these buildings just because we're so space constrained on the
Yeah.
current campus.
Right.
So we were sort of enthusiastic about saving some of these structures, even for
Yeah.
the interim period. And like, as I said earlier, every time we ever walked into those buildings, I mean, it's just so clear, our professional partners, but also anybody that's just been inside them. It's
Has
sad,
has anybody on the commission been inside? This
They're
one in particular?
No, because
Just
it's
around.
boarded up.
Yeah, you can't get
Yeah,
in.
yeah. But you can get in probably.
Well, yeah, we could certainly.
I was tempted.
They're
to
pretty
see-
rough. They're
Yeah.
pretty rough, but certainly, I'll follow Ray and Aaron's suggestions. I mean, I was really optimistic. Just to answer your question, did you ever think
Yeah.
about it? I started all this excited to kind of get across the street and have some offlet of office space or something,
Yeah,
and they're just
I know
terrible.
some are really
It's so
wretched.
bad. I
So,
mean, even the ones that look better than others, they've just been this water pouring in. There've been animals living in them. It's
sounds
just
like national park sites.
terrible. Yeah.
When we first got to them.
Well, I don't know. But
Yeah, similar problems.
If I could say something, sorry, I don't have my picture up there. I'm Mark. I live across the street from 25. In the 15 years I've lived here, there were residents of that house until 2 years ago, and the hospital told they were renting. But when they moved out, some movers were some trash movers were coming in to get stuff out of there because the previous residents left a lot of stuff. It's really awful. I don't know how they could have lived there. It was so run down inside. Even when they were living there were broken windows. I can understand the perspective. I wandered around in there. Actually, took a lot of pictures, but you can still go in and see it. But it's I appreciate the history of it, and if there's something could be done to at least keep the shape of it, that would be wickedly cool. But as far as anything that would have to be done to make that useful, it's hard for me to imagine. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank
yeah,
you.
one
Matt.
of our residents stepped up at our resident meeting a couple weeks ago and said, "Can we have a piece of one of those houses for the wood shop?" I mean, that's a creative
I hear you. Yeah.
creative idea. Yeah.
So what did I miss? Where are we? Are we ready for any motions?
No,
We're not ready for any motions.
I think we're, the question is, do we, I mean, I think it's back to where we started, which is, do we impose the delay or not? I just feel that, as a commission, if we don't, impose a delay, we're not doing our job. But I'm very simple, and also I feel that the commission's been burned a little bit by not by Newburyport in any way, or Emerson Hospital, but by developers who say, oh, it's much too difficult for me to do this, or it's going to be too expensive, and they're just not willing to try. And so, I feel like we're really losing a lot, and we're losing a lot in West Concord in particular.
Yes.
And so, for this one in particular, I would be inclined to impose a delay, but I think it's a commission vote, and we got to see where people are. And I'm willing to have someone, you know, on the commission argue with me on it as well.
I'm in full agreement. The idea that it's too difficult, I didn't say that, but those were my thoughts exactly, that where there's a will, there's a way. There's no, you know, your architects, that's what architects do. And there are plenty of old buildings. This is an 18th century building that has not been taken care of. We have other 18th century buildings in our
Yeah.
community are still standing, and, you know, yes, maybe inside it is unsafe. I don't disagree with that. But you know, a creative architect could
But
observe the structure, the outside of it, and do something with the inside.
but would it be the same too, Nancy, if by preserving it meant replacing every piece of wood with a new piece of wood to maintain the appearance of the structure that was there, but it's
I don't know
physically a
which,
different building?
I don't know
Because
which
it's like
Nancy
USS
you're
Constitution.
talking.
You've got this
I was
old
just going
wood.
to say, I knew that you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Yes. So
I
yes,
mean, it's the pieces have been changed. They've been replaced through the years to maintain, you know, the object of, you know, the entity, but it's not the same. And in this case, I haven't seen it, but I can only imagine that a place that hasn't been maintained, the wood's going to be rotten and things need to be reinforced, and they can do it, but they're basically building a new structure that looks like it. That's which
But none of us
That's what-
have been inside.
no,
I don't know that.
no, I don't
Other
know that.
18th century buildings in our town that have
Yeah.
18th century wood. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
They do.
Yeah.
Nancy, what are your thoughts, or would you
Uh,
pose a delay or no?
Are people talking mostly about one structure?
Yes, we're only
Yes.
talking about the
Yeah.
first one.
25.
Yes. Yeah, that's okay. That's what I thought. It's possible for the commission to reverse a delay.
We've
Yes.
talked about that.
So it's not,
In fact, that is a goal of demolition delay. Pardon me, Nancy, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt. That is a goal of demolition delay, is to encourage, right, you know, thinking about alternatives. And if Newbury Court came back and said, okay, we've looked at you could come back to us, you know, and then we could change the decision at a later date. So that would be another option, but you would force you to at least do some conceptual design to think about how your site plan is going to work, to see if that structure in some form, at least, you know, reduced, right, to the 18th century section could be incorporated, repaired and incorporated.
how difficult would it be to get back in there for us?
I mean, I'll defer to Ray. I think we just have to unscrew some of the plywood
Boards.
or kind of
Yeah.
unlock the door. I mean, you know, that certainly seems plausible. I guess the two things I would maybe share to Lauren's comments, you know, the first is, you know, just remember, if we're envisioning that somehow we're rebuilding or restoring a part of a building for our use, we are going to be held to all the sort of modern standards of sort
Right.
of, you know, senior living or healthcare and accessibility and fire suppression and all of that. And
Right.
I mean, it's a real big leap.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe me,
yeah,
I get
yeah.
that, because as Nancy and I both have a lot of experience
Okay.
working with National Historic Landmark structures that are very old.
Okay.
So, yeah, I
So-
totally get that. And that is a very valid point about its reuse in this setting, you know, as a public building as opposed to a private residence.
Thank you. And just the second thing I would just share, and maybe this is not in the purview of this commission, but, you know, we got beat up pretty good as it relates to affordability, attainability, and cost. And so everything we do choose to do that will exacerbate that, you know, seems to be not necessarily what many people are hoping for.
Um,
Mm.
Nancy?
I'm not prepared to speak to this in terms of line by line, but there are certain exemptions for treatment of historic buildings. Not only,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I think that should not be totally forgotten.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think I'd have to scour my memory and my notes for that, though.
we're not talking though about the level of following the secretary's standards. For
No,
historic
no, I'm not meaning that. But certain things may not have to be done the same way as a normal building in recognition of the historic nature of a structure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know that.
I
know we get scrutinized pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, I could certainly
Like-
find out more about that, but
With hopes my grammar won't be.
Okay.
that's all I have to say.
So we've had some back and forth. Is this the only structure we want to talk about? Do we want to may have agreement on the other three?
More than three.
Well, I mean,
Well, there's 74. There's 174, old, 166, and 148.
I have a question on one of them. I'm just seeing if I have the file up here.
I think 148 was the only one that
it's the
I thought
Crockett's.
might possibly, yeah.
Well, although he never lived there, he James Underwood, who was the most famous of the family.
Agreed. Yeah, personally, the other three, I have no objections. I don't know if anyone else does.
I had a question on, let me just tell you which number it is because I don't have it memorized. I'm sorry to say I have to look at the presentation.
Is it, which,
It's on 174.
Christian Science.
And I wonder, has anybody ever looked to see if, oh, I'm having a senior moment.
Well, we're just speaking with the right people.
Yeah. you need to check me into the memory care unit. No. Oh golly. I'll come back to me. I'll try to remember what I was trying to think.
Okay.
But I've seen structures like this, and just move along.
Doug, I don't know if you're looking for a motion, but I would be prepared something on the order of 174, you got it. I'm sorry.
I got it. Oh, phew, sorry. It took me a minute. On 174, has anybody ever checked to see if it was any of those structures were Royal Berry wills?
Oh, I don't.
The reason I raise that is that I have seen buildings like this that were attributed to Royal Berry wills, similar, and I just wondered.
Well, in our, sorry, Chris, just to say that in our research, we didn't find any such associations. We did research in the building permit files, historic newspapers, sort of some, primary and secondary source research, and we never were able to find who the architect was for the building. So not to date, we haven't found any such associations.
It's an archive. I mean, Ann and I talked about this a little bit. It's an archive I think it'd be worth looking at for Concord because we have so many structures that could very easily be Royal Berry wills, but okay. So nothing has turned up.
No.
I wonder how hard it would be to check that archive when you do the documentation.
Yeah, we could certainly look into that as part of the documentation that they're committed to providing. So
yeah,
happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. And then there was one other of the structures, and that had been an experimental building.
The modern one?
Yeah,
Um,
that, and Historic New England has a page.
I think that's 166 Ornac. Because it was Modern House Design number 46.
Yeah. So it's kind of, you know,
really interesting.
it's small and to
Anchor.
most people looks kind of undistinguished, but interesting for that period, and interesting that it was a, you know, part of a program. So
That
we
was
do-
architect Bankert, although they didn't quite follow his design.
yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Ornac Tail, yeah.
Yes, and that's additional research that we could do a little
You
bit
could
more
add.
digging into, you know,
Right.
Add to the
obviously documenting
documentation.
that it was a sort of pattern, you know, an established pattern from this architect, but there wasn't built exactly according to plan. So that could all
Yeah.
be part of the documentation
It
effort.
gives you a little historic context, kind of like the Sears houses or something. Yeah. Okay. So those are my comments about the others.
Okay,
But we could make a motion to approve everything but 25. Or to designate them all preferably preserved and waive the demolition period, subject to additional documentation to be completed by the proponent. Something like that.
Well, I'd second that because I think
Okay.
I agree with that.
So that would
is
be,
that worded clearly enough, Anne?
Yes.
you need to list
Yes,
them
I
all
think so.
by number.
Yeah, so Lauren makes a motion that we approve the demolition of 174, 166, and 148 Ornac. Subject
No,
Not
to-
one
that's not how.
No. No,
Wait.
no.
25,
That
174.
they're all determined preferably preserved.
Will be
That's
preserved.
number one.
And, but the demolition delay is waived.
Waived. Okay,
I think that's the key
Yes.
point there.
But
Subject to completion of additional documentation.
I second.
okay. All in favor? Nancy,
Aye. Oh,
Lauren,
Aye.
Nancy Solly,
aye.
Melissa, you seconded, so aye.
Nancy
Yeah.
voted twice.
And I will. And
I
for me.
vote, I vote aye too.
So that leaves us to 25.
Could you read that one last time? How Anne has got it.
Yeah, could you read
Motion.
what-
So Lauren made a motion to find 3 of the buildings, 174, 166, and 148 Old Road to 9 Acre Corner. She found them to be, she made a motion to find them preferably preserved, but to waive the demolition delay, subject to the completion of the additional documentation discussed. And then that was seconded by Nancy.
Melissa. Oh,
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 Melissa.
whatever. I don't think.
Okay.
Yes. And for 25, what is it that we need that would make up our minds? We need a site visit in the very near future. Is that what we kind of need to do, or I personally think if people saw the state, you'd feel,
Oh, it's in very poor shape.
yeah, I mean,
But-
condition does matter.
And
I still, I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is ridiculous that you could somehow incorporate the facade. I don't know how much of if it's a single room, 1 room, 2 rooms that constituted the original structure. Do we know that?
I might need help from Epsilon or Ray on that with the different additions.
I mean, and I appreciate, I think it would be very expensive to move it because it's fragile. But as we have noted, it is just about the only remaining 18th century building in West Concord.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, Chris, one thing that we might be willing to consider, if you agree, is that, we'll certainly work with you folks in the project architect in developing or exploring opportunities for retaining and possibly incorporating portions of it. And happy to report back to the commission on, the feasibility of doing that. Part of that, I think we would need to assess, as the chairman had pointed out, at the end of the day, how much historic fabric would in fact be retained and how much of it would be a replication.
Yeah.
I think, Chris, if you're in agreement, I think that's certainly something we can look into further, and explore, what opportunities, if any, may exist along those lines, and then report back to the commission.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard for me to understand, Doug, what those cost implications might look like, but I'm happy to sort of learn and explore with you for sure.
And I think the financial feasibility is a key component of that decision-making process to determine
Yep.
how viable that would be. So
Yeah.
I, as the one who, I appreciate that a lot. I think that, I'm not going to speak for the commission, but I think, Concord wants you to be successful, and we support the project. It's just, we're really struggling as a historical commission to try to save what we can, and we do. It would be great to save some bits of this building. If we
Can I show you the boiler? It's really cool.
I'd love to see the
However, the
boiler.
boiler,
Yeah, show us the boiler.
I
All
do
right,
think the boiler,
Yeah. So could we, let me, I know we need to move this along, but could we,
oh, there you go.
oh, there it is.
Oh, that's great. We often save oil. That
Oh, I
has to be
love it.
saved.
Yeah.
Needs to be
However,
cleaned up.
That's not 18th century.
Right. Right. It's 19 what, 20?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's great.
Very cute.
Maybe you could we could incorporate it into your own home.
Or your office.
Oh,
Become a
goodness.
planter.
Goodness, a planter would be great.
So we're tabling 25 Old Marlboro until further information.
Could we see it?
You actually are at the end of your 60-day period, so you either need to make a decision, or if you want to continue, you would need the applicant's approval to do that. The applicant needs to agree.
Another option, would be to just go ahead and impose a delay, and then with the idea that we'd look forward to continuing, conversation with Epsilon and Newbury Court as they explore the feasibility further. So, and then we can release the delay
when we've come up to some agreement.
Yeah,
So
that's
that
another,
would
that'd
be
be another option.
and that would mean that the countdown starts tonight, right? So you wouldn't be somehow penalized if you had to come back in another month. In other words, the delay, your delay starts tonight, and it could be once we come up with some mutual.
Yeah. Because it would be in the spirit of collaboration that we would try to find a, mutually agreeable solution, and if that seems to make sense to everybody.
And Chris, I would recommend that that's probably the best approach because, while I say we'll explore, the feasibility, is that going to be 2 weeks? Is that going to be 2 months? So I think in the spirit of, as the commissioners that have mentioned,
Yeah.
in the spirit of cooperation, probably best to impose the delay and then allow us the flexibility of, doing a thorough, analysis review of the feasibility of it, and then come back to the commission. And if it turns out that, everyone's in agreement, that's not viable, then at that point, the delay could be waived. The remaining amount of the delay could be waived.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Doug. And unless Jonathan's hand raised was to say something contrary.
It was to say
Thank
exactly
you.
that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Beautiful. Okay.
Nancy
Nancy,
has her
you
hand up.
still-
I was just saying, is documentation or a visit, was either of those included in your draft motion, Lauren?
Wouldn't that be for the
Well, I
final
didn't really make
approval?
a motion. I was just sort of
You
throwing
were,
out
yeah, I thought you
another
were,
option for discussion.
okay, I thought you were sort of reaching
Yeah.
for a motion.
It was almost a motion.
But whatever you were thinking, was that was
Yeah.
either a
Seconded.
visit and or documentation included in your thinking? That's a question.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But I think the first step is what I would just, as a discussion point, I would say first step would be evaluate feasibility, right? Because that's really the biggest issue. The documentation, I think, Epsilon's already made a lot of headway there. That's almost pro forma as part of this whole, it's really the feasibility of reusing the structure in some way that is the key point, that really is the harder task. So
Okay.
I
would
think
just
that would be
point
the
out
highest
that
priority.
you said it earlier, I think feasibility is in the in the eye of the person
Yeah.
who's either looking to change it or to keep
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah, that's
feasibility is
Right.
off.
They need,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We
Did-
really
did-
want to save it if we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Is there a
Okay.
definition for what feasibility means so we understand the parameters for what that ask is?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
That gets to the ambiguity of who's determining feasibility. Is it
Well-
financial? Is
I
it?
volunteer.
I would just add that I think it's a little bit, there might be a range of options. It's partly an alternatives analysis, right? Because you want to think about, well, could we save, the form of the 1790 structure? Could we save that and use it in some way? Some people have suggested a façadomy, facodectomy, or whatever it's called. Pardon me, but that just saving the facade. But I think there might be, there may be you come back and say we've done a structural analysis and it's, going to cost $18 million, and so we're not going to do it. But I think it's partly incumbent on Epsilon, who have the cultural resources expertise, right? And then, they know what the historic structure is, to kind of brainstorm about what some different options might be. But we'd entertain a broad range, I think. We'd be open-minded.
Thank you.
I still think it's important maybe to see it. But am I alone in that?
Well,
I don't really
you can go
know.
walk around the outside to go inside. That's different. And also I'm just thinking aloud that if you had someone an architectural firm that specializes in preserving old buildings, they're the people that's the expertise that we need. We need expertise. We don't.
Well, or not. What
To an extent.
I would want someone to be explaining that to me, because I don't have that expertise myself.
But what Lauren is proposing makes sense, that they explore options and alternatives, ways to somehow incorporate this structure, at least the 1790 portion. Don't think you'd have to have an historical architect
Right,
to explore that.
right.
And you know, we don't have an answer. Clearly,
We don't have any photographs at all of the interior, for instance. So we have no idea what it looks like inside.
Yeah, if there are any so-called character
Features.
finding features.
I personally would be not concerned at all about the interior.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's
I understand that too.
that's a history.
I mean, that house has been so altered. I can't remember. I kind of lost count of how many different additions that
Yeah, yeah.
accreted.
Well, it's the two parts that are 90 degrees to each other that have the gambrel roofs. They're the original parts. And I looked in the windows. You can look in the windows. There are some bookcases
didn't
that
do
look
that.
old, but I, you know, who knows? I didn't look
Yeah.
closely.
Yeah, I didn't do.
Okay. So do we have a motion to impose the delay?
We need a motion to determine if it's preferably preserved and subject to the delay period.
Well, so I
Would
moved
you like
that.
to make the motion, Lauren?
Yeah, you're good at this.
Oh, golly. I make a motion to determine that 25 Old Marlborough Road is preferably preserved and to impose the demolition delay period.
Okay,
Do you want to put any conditions on that?
Include subject to additional documentation.
And
And
an analysis, feasibility analysis? Are we going to ask for that officially?
do we
Well, we've
even need
imposed
that?
the demolition.
Because they would come back to us with.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
alternatives.
I
And
don't think
then
we need to-
then we would relieve it.
understand.
Okay.
So I second it.
Okay, Melissa seconds. Nancy Nelson,
Nancy is muted.
Could you go to the other folks first? I'm still
Sure.
pondering.
Nancy Frisella Lee,
Aye.
and myself, I.
Well, I.
Okay,
Melissa seconds.
I'm outvoted in any case, so I'm still interested in what historical fabric might still be visible and accessible from the interior.
Well, that could be that's part of the
That's fine.
analysis.
That's part of the analysis.
Okay, it'd be good if that was explicit.
Yeah.
Before we would relieve the condition,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They would have to
Okay.
come back to us, so we
Yeah.
would, those are things that we would.
okay.
need.
I'm just trying to follow the bylaw, you know, what's
No,
in
no,
our
that's-
purview. We
that's-
determine if it's preferably preserved and we, right?
And,
Yeah.
and subject to, you said, subject to.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
it's not required because the bylaw allows the applicant to come back to us with documentation, you know, that's allowed, and at which point we could,
Change our decision.
you know, eliminate
Yeah, remove
what's
the
the verb I'm
restriction.
looking for?
Waive.
Waive, thank you. Waive the delay.
Yeah,
That's part of the bylaw.
Okay,
yeah.
I,
Okay, there we go.
there we
All
go.
right. Thank you for the very animated discussion. Everyone very involved. You guys can tell we do love what we have, and it's always hard to see anything go. So this is
Yeah.
the toughest part of this commission.
Yeah, exactly.
We appreciate your time.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Melissa, you look like you're troubled. Is there something you want to say?
Well, I was just, I hear what Nancy, I know Nancy's dying to get inside that building. Would it be a real imposition to ask if we could meet someone there and I don't, we're
Well-
asking a lot of you guys already, but
I think when they're ready, they can reach out to us, reach out to Ann, and Ann can schedule something.
okay. Thank
That'd be
you.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
It was
thanks, everyone.